You're listening to Life of the Record, classic albums told by the people who made them. My name is Dan Nordheim. Smog began in 1988 as the alias for Bill Callahan. Initially, he released cassette recordings under his own label called Disaster. The debut Smog album, Sewn to the Sky, was released in 1990. After signing with Drag City, he released a series of albums in the 90s, including Forgotten Foundation, Julius Caesar, Wild Love, The Doctor Came at Dawn, Red Apple Falls, and Knock Knock. In the early 2000s, he released Dongs of Savotion, Rain on Lens, and Supper. At this point, he was living in Chicago and decided to move to Austin, Texas, where he began writing songs for his 11th album. He wanted to abandon the Smog name and start releasing music under his own name, but Drag City asked him to wait until the next record. A River Ain't Too Much to Love was eventually released in 2005. In this episode, for the 20th anniversary, Bill Callahan reflects on how the album came together. This is the making of A River Ain't Too Much to Love.
This is Bill Callahan, and we are talking about A River Ain't Too Much to Love. Well, I was talking to, right before I started talking to you, I texted my friend Connie, who played bass on the record. I was like, what should I talk about? I mean, we'd been friends for years and years before making this record together, and she knew me very well, and she said I had become a different person with this different energy that she really wanted to be around, as if I'd made this sketch of who I wanted to be, but the record made it into flesh and blood. Well, I would say recording the record was probably at a time of one of the biggest transitions of my life, which was I was living in Chicago and I really wanted to get out of there, largely due to the winters were absolutely unbearable for me. The gray skies, the lack of sunlight, and all that. Grew up on the East Coast and moved to the West Coast in my early 20s, and I'd lived down south and a bunch of places, and I'd passed through Austin 2 or 3 years before this record. And I really liked Austin a lot, and I just started telling everybody that I was going to move there. And I was telling everybody that for a couple of years, and then I didn't want to be the guy that was always talking about something that he never did. So I was like, fuck, I actually have to move to Austin, even though I don't know anybody there. And it felt like home to me. Even just a little bit of time a couple of days that I had spent here. And so I finally did it, and I knew one person hardly at all. And I contacted him when I got to town. And I was like, hey, I just moved here. Do you want to like have a drink or something? And he was like, well, actually, I'm moving like tomorrow to a different state. And so I think I got together with him that night, and then he left, and I knew absolutely nobody. But so yeah, like I wanted to own my own house and have a yard and all this kind of thing that I'd never had. And Austin seemed like a place that I could afford to do that in 2004. And I also, musically, some big changes. Like I wanted to stop releasing records under the name of Smog and just use my own name. Then this record was supposed to be the first record that I enabled that desire with, but my record label kind of got freaked out by the idea of, all the years of putting the Smog name out there and that nobody would know what it was, and usually they have like zero interference in what I do, and that's why I've been with them since, for 30 years, is because they just let me do whatever I want. And I could give them like a Metal Machine music or something and they would release it. Probably even literally, if I gave them Metal Machine music, they would release it. But so since they had been so accepting of all of my foibles in the past, I was like, okay, you really don't want me to change my name, so I'm not going to do it, but I got to do it. I told them I'm going to do it on the next album, so you have plenty of warning to get used to the idea and start promoting it however you want. But the name change came first because my move, I had a lot of big plans for my move. I was, like I said, I was going to buy my first house and have my first yard and buy my first piano in the house. And I'm sure there are other firsts. So by leaving Chicago, I wanted to leave everything and start a brand new life. And that included leaving Smog in Chicago, which I wasn't allowed to do for this one. But in my heart, Smog was gone. And so that's how I approached the record.
Winter weather is not my soul, but the biting for spring.
There's that change, and also the way I play guitar started to change. I got into fingerpicking for the first time, basically, and that really changed the shape of the songs, I think. There's a big difference between strumming and fingerpicking because when you're fingerpicking, there's a hole in the middle of music, I think, where the voice can sit. Whereas if you're strumming, the voice has to go on top and the strum goes beneath. So that really shaped why this record sounded really different for me. I mean, it was probably because of Willie, and I was moving to Austin. I was like, okay, I gotta get a nylon string like Willie has so I can fit in. I didn't take any lessons. I think I just kind of messed around with it. Yeah, It's amazing what you can learn, how you can learn just by listening to other people play. And somehow, I mean, not even like watching them, because that's a whole other way to, you can see what someone's fingers doing, but just listening. I'm always amazed that, like, I'm not a very musical person. I can't read music. I don't know about keys and all that. But if I listen to something enough, my brain just kind of like tells me eventually how to do it. It's strange. It's amazing. So yeah, I just messed around and tried to copy stuff. And I did struggle, like, yeah, it was very hard to play my own songs, but I made them difficult so that I would have to learn. And now they don't seem difficult at all, but at the time they did. I did struggle to write these new songs just because like I said, I left everything behind, which maybe I was looking at that as an obstacle until I started looking at it as a stepping stone instead of an obstacle, you know. And I'd forgotten that, yeah, my mother I told her that I was having trouble writing and that I felt like I was just drifting or something like that. And she said that would be a good idea for a song. And that was how Say Valley Maker came to be. It was just from the little image that she put in my head of someone floating down a river. Well, the first song is called Palimpsest, which really just came from reading that word and not knowing what it meant and looking it up and loving that there was a word for that. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's palimpsest is on a document when you can see what old information has been erased with new information written on top of it. You can still see what the old notation or information was underneath it. And I saw that as a pretty good metaphor for like me moving to a different state and trying to become a new person, but I'm sure that like the erased pencil scribblings of me could still be seen underneath.
Why is everybody looking at me like there's something fundamentally wrong? Like I'm a southern bird that stayed north too long.
I moved in the winter. I remember how beautiful the Austin, Texas winter was, especially that year. You know, it was clear blue sky every day and warm enough to sit in your backyard like without a shirt on. And that was definitely inspiration for Palimpsest. Another reason for getting a nylon string guitar was Mickey Newberry, who pretty much exclusively played nylon string. And that was around right when I was just discovering Mickey Newberry. And I think Palimpsest in particular, I was kind of trying to write a song in his high poetic style that he has. Also, a lot of his songs start with a non-verbal emoting. You know, he kind of either whistles or hums a melody and for like a minute, and then he starts singing. I think I kind of tried to mimic that a little bit at the end of the song. Yeah, it's double guitar, and it's not a fiddle. It's this thing called a chanter, which is what people use to practice bagpipes, but without the bag. It's the reed instrument, but without the sac of air. Gives it that wailing sound that kind of sounds like a harmonica or a fiddle. But yeah, it's also on. The chanter is on Let Me See the Colts, and I don't know, I might have put it somewhere else too. Palimpsest was definitely always meant to be an opening song, and for the most part, that's how I write. I know where a song is going to be in the sequence even before it's finished. So, and that was definitely Palimpsest was definitely going to be the first song.
Winter exposes the nests, and I'm gone.
Well, another unique thing about this record is that I took the band on the road for about maybe 10 shows or something right before, and we played the album before going in the studio. I started in Austin. I remember we went up to Portland and Arizona and probably LA, and I don't remember where all else. But so by the time then we got back, and then I think we went in the studio the next day. I'd never done anything like that, and we were so goddamn ready. We tracked the whole thing in like a day and a half, like all the songs, and they were like, "Now what do we do?" But yeah, it really helped speed things along. And also, most of the time that I go into a studio, the songs aren't really ready to be born yet, or they're right on the edge and kind of have to coax them out. And sometimes they kind of like preemies when the final version is like a preemie baby. It's very kind of fragile, and that adds something definitely to it, like that adds an energy, a fragility, and also just like a strength of trying to make up for the fragility. And then as once you start touring the songs, they become stronger and different and more fully fleshed out. And they often change for better or worse, usually better, I think, over time, to the point where, I mean, I don't ever listen to my records, but I do know my songs from playing them. And I always think that if I do have to listen to an old record, I'm usually surprised at how different the recorded songs actually were, because I've kind of grown and changed with the songs. But with the songs on A River Ain't Too Much to Love, they had that growing period when we toured them before recording. And those songs, they don't ever seem to change.
With the grace of a corpse in a riptide, let go. And I slide, slide, slide down river.
The record was recorded at, down here we call it Pedernales Studios, even though there's no R, but you got to say Pedernales, in Spicewood, Texas, which is about 45 or so minutes outside of Austin, and the studio is on I think it's a half golf course, an old country club that Willie bought, and because he wanted his own golf course, as everybody does. And yeah, every night there would be like so many deer that you'd have to, as you were leaving, avoid hitting Willie's deer. But there's also the town around it. Someone was showing me that there is kind of a housing community area that supposedly a lot of Willie's people lived in these houses just to be at the ready as soon as if they need to go on tour, so all of his touring guys and stuff lived in the same neighborhood near the studio, is what I was told. And from the window of the isolation booth, if I'm remembering correctly, you can see Willie's ranch, which is not close, but it's down in a valley kind of. You can see it. So I guess he could keep his eye on his house while he was recording vocals. I mean, I think it was just a place that I'd heard about, and I was like, now I can record here easily, and I just wanted to go experience it for myself. The studio sounds great. They had a very unusual setup of having most studios have one mixing board where all the faders and all the sounds go into the mixing board, and that has a lot to do with the sound that you get on tape. This was the first studio I'd ever seen that had two mixing boards right next to each other, and they were using the preamps, I think, of one, and then using the other board for all the other like EQ and controls and stuff. But whatever that mixing board that they're feeding everything through first made everything sound instantly really nice. So in that way, it made recording was quite easy.
And I sing, say Valley Maker, to keep from cursing. Yes, I sing, say Valley Maker, to keep from cursing. River, oh, river end. River, oh, river end. River go, river bend.
Connie Lovatt came up with all these great bass lines. We struggled a lot. We had a strange thing with the bass guitar on this record. For some reason, the engineer, we tracked all the songs, and he was like, I don't know what's going on, but I can't hear the bass. And I don't even remember it's still a mystery to me what was happening, but he just informed us that the bass was barely audible and he couldn't do anything about it. Which, seems like something an engineer should be able to take care of. I would say that Steve, the engineer, he told me, well, he actually told my record label about like 4 or 5 days in to the sessions that he was like, had no idea what was going on, and that like he just didn't know what to expect at any given moment, which seems strange because we were just a trio, you know. It was bass and drums, and I was playing guitar. For the majority of the tracking, it was just that, and with me singing, it was all live. And then I brought in, started bringing in some other people, you know, fiddle player and some extra percussion, and it didn't seem that crazy to me. It seems like this is the way I always do it. Like I lay down the core tracks live, and then I bring in a few people to overdub. But for some reason, the engineer was totally freaked out and confused by this. I don't know, maybe because I didn't tell him in advance or something, so people would just show up. But yeah, I'm not sure why he was so perplexed by what seemed like a very standard recording session to me.
'Cause there is no love where there is no obstacle, and there is no love where there is no bramble, and there is no love on the hacked away plateau, and there is no love in the unerring, and there is no love on the one true path.
Yeah, we'll say Valley Maker was probably the first, almost definitely was the first song I wrote for the record. Like I said, kicked off by a comment that my mother made when I told her about writer's block. My mom had just said something about a guy floating in the river and being moved by the currents, you know, which probably describes my mom's life more than it does mine. But I mean, I guess he wasn't a corpse, but I compared it to a corpse. Yeah, it all just kind of spun off the image of someone floating down the river, and then really it just kind of, it told its own story. I just wanted something with all the elements in it, and kind of like exploding like the Big Bang has all the elements in it. I wanted it to have the fire and water and wood and stone, you know, kind of to be the Big Bang of the creation of the record.
Oh, I cantered out here, now I'm galloping back. So bury me in wood, and I will splinter. Bury me in stone, and I will quake.
It wasn't a conscious thing of, in fact, I probably denied it for years. The fact that my Texas surroundings were influencing the music. I think it just took me a few years to realize that that was what was happening. But I definitely had I'd been living in Chicago, which is a stone fortress, and it's hard, getting out into nature I found it very difficult in Chicago area as compared to Austin, where at that time in 2004 when I moved here, it felt like the city had been carved into nature. Usually I look at cities as these monolithic things that have no beginning or end, no edges. It's a planet that you kind of can't escape. Everywhere you go, it's planet Chicago or planet New York. But in Austin, I felt like I could drive in any direction, and before too long, the city would just stop, and there'd be grass, and there'd be horses. Any direction I went, I ended up, the city would just like abruptly stop, it seemed like to me as a newcomer, and city stops, field with horses, and a lot of the bars and other businesses had like dirt parking lots and dirt roads. That's changed now. That was 20 years ago. It's gotten a lot more like other cities now, but it still has this protected area called the Green Belt. It goes right through the middle of the city. So no matter what part of town you live in, you're pretty close to the Green Belt, which is just a big protected, forested area with water that is sometimes dries up and sometimes full for swimming holes. And yeah, so I felt as if nature was the kind of the hand, and then Austin was like in the palm of the hand as a city, but it was still like surrounded by this stuff that was very easy to access. Just feeling how different it was here, going in my backyard and there's all these hawks circling, and you don't usually see that stuff unless you're in like Montana or something.
Bury me in water and I will geyser. Bury me in fire and I'm gonna phoenix. I'm gonna phoenix.
Yeah, like getting Jim White to be the drummer, he's such a expressive drummer that he can be like a whole band, because he can just fill those empty spaces with so much beauty. And I think the finger picking also enabled him to be in full bloom.
This one's called The Well. I could not work, so I threw a bottle into the woods.
Well, I think with The Well, the guitar part is pretty propulsive in parts, and I think that probably helped. I mean, especially if you compare it to something like Say Valley Maker, which is, at least the first half of that song is very It's just three or four notes in a not a very particularly like exciting way. But I think with a well, it felt more like a rockabilly song or something that could really get some slapping drums behind it. I think you just felt the propulsiveness of the guitar part and pushed that harder.
And then I felt bad for the dough part and the rabbit part. So I went looking for the pieces of the bottle that I threw. Oh, 'cause I couldn't work. I went deep, further than I could throw. And I came upon an old abandoned well.
Well, with the well, I started with the first line. I remember that. Like I said earlier, that I was kind of having writer's block in my new life. So the first line is, I could not work, so I threw a bottle into the woods. And yeah, in my new house, I had some woods behind my house, and I couldn't work. That's how the song started, and then I just kind of, yeah, I guess in a lot of these songs, I just kind of follow an image, you know. So say Valley Maker, I just had the image of someone floating in the river on the back, and I just kind of followed it as if it was in my mind, you know. And then the same with the well, I just followed the bottle. Okay, the guy threw the bottle, and then now where's the bottle? And so he goes to look for the bottle, and yeah, I think when you have the right image, it writes the song for you, you know? You just kind of have to follow it.
When I got the boards off, I stared into the black, black, black. And you know I had to yell just to get my voice back. I guess everybody has their own thing that they yell into a well. I gave it a couple of hoots, a hello, and a fuck all y'all.
There's a reason why an image feels right. I think because it's like a seed, you know, it has the whole tree in it. You just have to water it, watch it grow. And it's often the first. I often come up with either a title or the first line of a song. Those are once I get either one of those that feels like a seed, the rest usually happens quickly and easily. Yeah, I was definitely listening to Johnny Cash around the time of the record, and the well is in the way that Palimpsest is kind of a tribute to Mickey Newbury. I would say that the well is a tribute to Johnny Cash. Definitely, yeah.
Hello? Fuck all y'all.
Well, my voice was getting deeper in pitch with every record. It started to go back up again lately, but for a while it was going down, down, down with each record. And also, like I said earlier, with the finger picking guitar instead of strumming, it leaves that center big open space for a vocal to sit in when you're mixing. So that probably, contributes a lot to the fact that my voice is maybe more present than more upfront than past records. And also nylon string guitar, nylon strings have much less, well, they're more muted. They don't have, I think they give off less frequencies, definitely less treble frequencies than a steel string guitar. And they have less sustain. I kind of got into the idea of most guitarists, they want like sustain as like a big thing. They just want a note to ring out forever. But I was like, no, I want this note to die as soon as I hit it so that like you can hear my vocal, And definitely with fingerpicking a nylon string guitar, the note dies pretty quickly. So that's another reason why the vocal feels so present on this record.
Well, they say black is all colors at once. So I gave it my red rage, my yellow streak, the greenest parts of me, and my blues. And I knew just what I had to do. I had to turn around and go back and let that drip roll down my back. And I felt so bad. I felt so bad about that.
Oh yeah, the whole record is in one specific tuning. I forgot about that. Which definitely gives a cohesiveness to the record because they're all in this tuning. And at the beginning of the first song, I think the first thing I do is just strum an open chord. And so that kind of introduces all the tones that are going to be on the record in one sound. So it's a different tuning than standard and slightly lower. Now it's like the fourth string goes down half a step, I think, and then the fifth string is down a full step. And then I don't remember if I dropped the E to a D or not. I probably did. The low E. And maybe even the high E. I don't know, because that's how nowadays I almost always play a double drop D. Maybe I did that for the record. I probably did. Yeah, using an alternate tuning was probably partially inspired by the fact that I was playing this nylon string guitar for the first time, which has the neck is wider, so the strings are farther apart, and I was finger picking. I think I was trying to make it a little easier on myself because, an open tuning can be a lot easier to play in because, like I said, you can just not press any strings down and you've got a chord already. So I think I was just trying to make it a little easier, but also just wanted to go some places I hadn't been to before.
I love my mother. I love my father. I love my sisters too. I bought this guitar to pledge my love, to pledge my love to you.
Rock Bottom Riser, I wanted to write a song that was completely unironic and just completely, I was wondering, can I write a song that is so straightforward, no like fancy footwork, that just like says it like it is, and can it still be like compelling or interesting, or will people want to hear it? And I thought if I could boil things down to really simple statements. I love my mother, I love my father, just like these really simple statements. I was sure that it would work, without trying to be fancy or distanced or even nuanced or anything. I just wanted to be like really straightforward.
I am a rock bottom riser. And I owe it all to you. I am a rock bottom riser. And I owe it all to you.
I mean, I think with Rock Bottom Riser, that was one of the ones that, well, I think the title came first. And then the title told the story to me, and I just had to listen to the title and write it down. But where that phrase came from, I don't know. It just kind of popped into my head. And I think I was also, with that song, just trying to make sense of the oh fuck moment when I got to Austin. I was like, I don't know anyone here. And I kind of needed to convince myself that I had done the right thing by writing these songs. There's the image of like a gold ring at the bottom of the river, which is obviously not like, that's imagery. It's not a literal thing like the rest of the song. Yeah, I just wanted to write it in the plainest words possible and see if it still had any dramatic weight to it.
I saw a gold ring at the bottom of the river, glinting at my foolish heart. Oh, my foolish heart had to go diving, 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 diving into the murk.
Yeah, Joanna was just hanging out in the studio, and she said, I guess it was after I'd done the basic tracking with the band, and then I went in to do overdubs with the various people that were coming in, and hadn't really planned on having Joanna on the record, but she just said she was listening back to everything that as we were doing other overdubs, and she said, if I hear a piano part on one of these songs, do you want me to play it? And I was like, sure. And the only time like she popped up was on Rock Bottom Riser. She's like, I think I hear something for that one. So she went out and tracked the piano, which is it's actually Bobby Nelson's piano. Willie's sister. She keeps it at the studio there.
I left my mother. I left my father. I left my sisters too. I left them standing on the banks, and they pulled me out of this mighty, mighty, mighty river.
I think with this record, I was maybe becoming more forgiving or appreciative of my family and, my parents particularly. When you're in your early 20s, or when I was in my early 20s, and a lot of my friends who were in their 20s, blamed a lot of things on their parents and on their upbringing. Whether it's true or not, I got to a point where I hit this wall where I kind of realized that it doesn't matter. Maybe your parents didn't do the best thing for you. Maybe they did. It doesn't matter. You're a grown-ass person now, and you have the power to shape your life in whatever way you want it to. And it just seems like, in a way, that, like, bagging on your parents it's a good crutch to get you away from them. Because if you think they're great, perfect, then you don't want to leave. You're like, I'm just going to stay here. My parents are so cool. So, like, I think it's kind of natural to have, like, to be critical, and that helps drive you out and gets you to forge your own identity and do what you're supposed to do. So I think it's good to complain about your parents for a while, but then I think you can't make that your MO, you gotta leave that crutch behind, hopefully by the time you hit 30. For me, it was around 30. I felt like I became a grown-up when I hit 30. Yeah, so I've just been thinking a lot about that stuff, that type of thing. Just, it's not a good look to spend your entire life criticizing your parents. You got to move on at some point, and I think that's one thing that was happening around the time of the record.
Whether or not there is any type of God, I'm not supposed to say. And today, I don't really care. God is a word, and the argument ends there.
I feel like the mother of the world, well, strangely, it came from, like, all the conflicts in the Middle East, that have been happening for decades and decades, are still happening now, as it's really come to the forefront now, but I just remember always hearing about those conflicts and it making me feel like a mother who wanted to separate two children. Yeah, it just came from that. I always see things in family terms, you know, it's just the structure of the family structure is so applicable to the other structures in our lives, the other relationships. So it made sense to like weave the actual mother and children type of imagery into there also.
Oh, do I feel like the mother of the world with two children fighting? When I was a boy, I used to get into it bad with my sister. And when the time came to face the truth, the only tears and sighs. And my mother, my poor mother, would say it does not matter, to stop fighting.
I feel like the mother of the world, that one had a very kind of a strange chord forming. I didn't make the best chord progression, and that's probably like why I hardly ever play that song live. And it was just a weird chord thing. I couldn't even remember how to play it now if I had to. But then Thor Harris came in with his hammer dulcimer. Yeah, Thor Harris. He wrote me a letter. He didn't know that I'd moved to Austin. He wrote me a letter thinking that I lived in Chicago, I think, and said he'd made this resolution to just write to everybody, the musicians that he liked, and offering his services to play. So I didn't know, I'd never heard of him, but he sent me this letter. I didn't know anyone in Austin. And I got this letter saying, hey, I love your music. If you ever need a drummer, let me know. And then I wrote to him, I was like, actually, I just moved to Austin. So I think I barely knew him at that point. But yeah, I was like, come add some percussion to the record. And yeah, he brought the hammer dulcimer, and which was a huge part of the sound of the song. And thankfully it totally masked my strange chord progression with a big clangy hammer dulcimer. So yeah, that's how that happened.
Oh, do I feel like the mother of the world with two children?
In the Pines, I always loved that song, and I had tried to learn it in standard tuning, and it never, I wanted to put my own mark on it, like you're always supposed to do with a cover version. But in standard tuning, I couldn't crack the song. It was just really kind of stifled and I wasn't adding anything to it. But then when I attempted it again in this new, this alternate tuning that I was using for everything, all of a sudden I was playing it differently, just kind of feeling my way through the chords. Yeah, and that really, it was just the different tuning, like totally gave me the space to make the song connect, to make myself connected with the song.
The longest train I ever saw went down that Georgia line.
I remember I loved Mickey Newberry's version, which is, he turns it into this sort of just like a rocket ship blasting into space kind of song. Very kind of anthemic or something. I probably used his version of the words or something close to it. In the Pines is just one of those songs that is so mystical seeming and simple, but like just the richest imagery that seems to be, it's like, it's primeval, could be from any point in human history, really, that, or beyond, sort of, it's like an elemental, the lyrics are elemental, just these building blocks, it's like DNA of a human, kind of.
In the pines, in the pines, where the sun never shines, and we shiver when the north wind blows.
A lot of Texas artists have covered that song, and I always think it's a good idea to put a traditional song on a record. It's like a paying back, acknowledging of everybody that went before you, that I wouldn't be here if there weren't these traditional songs. Those are the seeds that all other songs sprouted from, So it always feels like an offering to the gods, kind of, to put a song on there that was not written by me and probably written, shaped by hundreds of people until I got to hear it.
Little girl, little girl, what have I done that makes you treat me this way? Well, you have caused me to weep. You caused me to moan. You caused me to leave my home.
For Drinking at the Dam, Connie and I just overdubbed some vocals. They had one of those tile echo chambers at the studio, which you see them less and less, but it's basically a room that they cover the walls and ceiling and floor completely in tile, and they put a mic in the middle of the room, and that's the sole function of the room, is just to be a natural reverb. And that's where, I think that's something like Fleetwood Mac on Tusk, when they get those amazing, like, ethereal kind of backing vocals that seem to have no body. It's just all soul or something, or it's like it's pure spirit kind of, or something, and so smooth and dreamy. I think what they're using on Tusk is probably a tiled reverb chamber, and that's because it's analog, it's true, it's actual reverb. It's not made by a machine. It's just the sounds bouncing all over these tile walls. So yeah, I was trying to steal a little bit of that Tusk magic for Drinking at the Dam.
I remember drinking at the dam. With a jar of heads on the other side.
I was again thinking about war, and that's a lot of the imagery is just from that, the futility of fighting wars, and just that interesting thing of like kids or teenagers, like going to strange places to kill a 12-pack, like all those weird places that kids hide so they can be alone and drink some beers with their friends. And of course, the dam is like pretty potent image itself.
Cut in school to go drinking at the dam. Skin mags in the brambles. For the first part of my life, I thought women had orange skin. It was the first part. It was the first part of my life. Second is the rest.
Drinking at the Dam, I think it started with, the first image that I got was the Skin magazine in the Brambles. I remember when I was a kid, like that was kind of a thing, would be, because, go exploring woods and creeks and stuff. And there was always I was often like a girly magazine just out. I mean, if I found one now, I would be like disgusted and run, as, now that I know like just what people use those magazines for. But at the time, I didn't quite, prepubescent, so like I didn't really quite know what they were all about. But I found myself like yeah, I would always see like pages of that just like scattered around, and that stuck with me.
Teenage war chests fill and do the dirty, dirty, dirty work. It was the first part. It was the first part of their lives. Drinking at the dam, holding back what it can, but the power is so much.
Well, the waltz time is always, it's always fascinated me. I think there's something kind of, I don't know if it's healing about 3/4 time, or it seems to be really engaging. It's an engaging time signature, I think, because even if you're not waltzing when you're listening to it, it does make your brain waltz with the thoughts and the feelings of the music. And I do think, you know, because waltzing was in the past like a big way of how people got together and hooked up and got to know each other, would be at these dances where the songs are all in waltz time. I do think there's kind of a vestigial feeling of connecting, of like seduction almost, and hope for love. So whereas something in 4/4 time is it's more of a presentation that doesn't necessarily court. I mean, it's almost in the title, 3/4 and 4/4. With 3/4, it's like, oh, something's missing, and that's me. That's my engagement, or I'm missing. But 4/4, there's nothing missing. It's a perfect equation of one. But 3/4 is like 3/4. So it needs the person to listen to it, and you are the one that makes the 3 into the 4. That makes the song complete, I think.
I lay on the bed in the dark, laughing at things I think of. Getting off on the pornography of my past. Lighting matches and dropping them into a wet glass.
Well, I think running the loping, I was, as part of my big life change, my 180-degree change of buying a house with a yard and all that stuff. And I was also hoping to like get married, settle down, have kids. That wouldn't happen for a long time after that. But it was also running. I've been a runner off and on in my life, but I picked it up again in Austin, and I think I thought if I wrote a song about running, that I would be forced to stick with it, because I'm basically telling the world that I'm a runner. So I think the song started from it just came from the idea of running, I think.
Scratch marks on my knees since I've been running the Bramble. brambly. Oh, the brambly. Oh, the brambly. When I'd much rather be wanting to be running the loping.
I'm trying to remember what the other lyrics are. I remember the stuff about the dropping matches into a wet glass and the pornography of my past. I don't remember how the song ends. Yeah, I mean, I think the idea, now that you remind me of the lyrics, which I'd forgotten, to running the loping, probably because I used to perform that song, but I haven't done it for at least 10 years. So that's why the lyrics have probably are eluding me. But yeah, I was just kind of trying to offer a different way of looking at life, like saying like every day isn't going to be perfect, but maybe every other day is, and that's enough.
No. 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 I did not become someone different. I did not want to be.
I'm new here. That started because when I was new to Austin, I was very grateful and impressed by the highway structures here that I hadn't encountered in other parts of the country. I think they might have been, I've since discovered in Louisiana. So there's the highway and there's the frontage road. And then the highway goes over, it's on stilts. Frontage road, you can go left or right, like every other frontage road in the country. But there's a third option. You can just turn around and make a U-turn. So if you weren't supposed to have got off, usually if you get off at the wrong highway exit, you have to go along the frontage road until the next on-ramp. But in Texas, every off-ramp has an immediate U-turn thing that you can do. And being new to Austin, I was making a lot of wrong. I was still finding my way around the city. So I was very grateful for these quick turnarounds that you can make instead of having to go all the way to the next on-ramp and then to the next. Once you get on, you have to go to the next exit and then turn around, So yeah, I just saw in that as no matter how far wrong you've gone, you can always turn around, is the lyric. And again, like referencing my move from Chicago to Austin, or hopefully not just about me, but anybody's big move in life, That's how the song started, just putting the turnaround ramp into the song.
But I'm new here. Will you show me around? No matter how far wrong you've gone, you can always turn around.
Well, for I'm New Here, we actually had we on the tour that we did leading up to the recording, we did have a band arrangement that was pretty great. But something happened in the studio. I was having trouble. It's a two-string guitar part. For some reason, I was having trouble playing it with the band. I just kept messing it up. So I was like, well, let me just try it by myself, and then maybe you guys can add your parts later. So I just did it by myself, and I just liked, it felt really cool to have a two-string guitar song, and it sounded, real different from the rest of the LP. So I just decided to, I don't think they even tried to overdub their parts onto it. It's just my ineptitude of not being able to, I don't know, sometimes when you play something, it's easier to play it by yourself because it's a lot freer because it's looser, so you can kind of mess up a little bit and it sounds like it's part of the song, but not if you're with a band.
Met a woman in a bar. I told her I was hard to get to know and near impossible to forget. She said I had an ego on me the size of Texas. Well, I'm new here and I forget. Does that mean big or small?
I got a letter in the mail from Richard Russell, who runs XL Records, and he produced the Gil Scott-Heron record. And he just told me that they wanted to cover I'm New Here. It's funny that he wrote me a letter. I mean, the internet was in existence at the time, 2004. But for some reason, Richard chose to write a letter, which was very cool, I thought. Yeah, I really couldn't believe that Gil Scott-Heron was going to cover it.
Turn around, turn around, turn around, and you may come full circle and be new here again.
Well, an interesting thing about this record that really pleases me was that I found out that Sarah Silverman loves this record, and she tweeted about it a long time ago, and then I think it was last year she tweeted again. She was like, the record of the year is once again A River Ain't Too Much to Love, even though it was 20 years since the record came out. But I thought that was pretty cool.
Knocked on your door at dawn. with a spark in my heart.
Let Me See the Colts was... I want to say that song started with the guitar riff, which is unusual for me to start a song with a guitar riff, but it's just like the sliding up the neck thing that I'd never done before, and it sounds real different from any other song I'd recorded. The title probably came before the guitar riff. Really, that phrase, "Let me see the Colts," popped into my head, and I was just like, what could that possibly mean? Let me try to find out. And yeah, the story was in that weird sentence.
Dragged you from your bed and said, "Let me see the Colts that will run next year." And show them to a gambling man, thinking of the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was trying to end the record with a little bit of hope, and it's about a guy waking up to... I think I write about waking up a lot. I'm just always fascinated about the way living things go to sleep and wake up and have the world goes to sleep and goes black and wakes up, and it never fails to just fascinate me that we have this kind of second chance every day to start again. So I think I was just thinking about that. I always think about that, like pretty much every day and every night, so.
Is there anything as still as sleeping horses? Let me see the Colts. Let me see the Colts that will run next year.
Well, I mean, I remember the record came together so quickly. We tracked basic tracking, it was a day and a half, which is very quick for me. And like I said, after this record, I started recording under my own name, and I think I owe that confidence to how River Ain't Too Much to Love came out. Kind of gave me the belief that it's okay to change the name and to change the way I play. It's definitely a landmark record for me, I think, in my development as a musician. I mean, it does seem to be a lot of people's favorite record of mine, and I think, it might even be my favorite record of mine. It's definitely it's just so cohesive, and it's kind of a power trio record. It all just hangs together so nicely, and nothing seems forced or labored over. And it's got, like I said, it's cohesive. It has like one sound that is very clear and simple, and light. It has a lightness, a springiness to it. Partially because the bass was like fucked up, and maybe that was a blessing in disguise. There isn't like a deep booming bass sound to it. It's all very light, just because that's all the bass sound we could get out of the recording. And it reminds me of, it's clear like a river, or like some rivers. It's a very like clear sounding record to me. Yeah, it definitely like the most of a piece thing that I've done without trying to be of a piece. It just kind of, it all hangs together so nicely without even trying. We've been talking about my record, A River Ain't Too Much to Love, which everybody agrees is my best record of all time. And even I like it.
Visit lifeoftherecord.com for more information about Bill Callahan. You'll also find a full transcript of this episode and a link to purchase A River Ain't Too Much to Love. Instrumental music by Lovatt. Thanks for listening.